If I'm just posting, you should buy this, skip. Like I'm not interested. But if it's why, if it's how you built it, I think Grace Beverly, who's really big in the UK, she talks about why she built something. And that brings me back to entrepreneurship of they're creating a solution for a problem. And she's specifically saying, I hated the way all of my leggings felt on me. And so I actually designed this and I did it this way. And that makes me want to buy. So I'm like, you put so much time and energy into this. You're telling me the entire process. I now can understand. I feel like I can ask you questions. And I think it's bringing people in. And people feel involved and not like you're selling to them, but that you're co-creating with them. And I think that's the biggest difference.
That is Victoria Smith, host of the Fashion and Founders podcast. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Create Tomorrow podcast. I'm your host, Cassandra Napoli, head of consumer forecasting at WGSN. Every 2 weeks, I will take you on a journey to examine how trends are translated into aesthetics and product design. In this episode, Victoria and I discuss the rise of creator-led businesses, the fragmentation of media, and why audiences are increasingly turning to individual voices over institutions. Victoria, welcome to the Create Tomorrow podcast. I'm so excited to have you here. To start, can you please tell our listeners who you are, what you do, and a bit about your career journey so far?
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm usually on the other side of the microphone and the questions. This is really fun for me. And yeah, my name is Victoria Smith. I host Fashion Founders, the podcast, and have been building it as a media platform, including events, a Substack with 13,000 subscribers, and of course, the social channels. And that really sits at the intersection of fashion, tech, and culture. And so hoping to show up as well at more events like the Met Gala, Wimbledon, the World Cup, and really peel back that layer of what is happening in the back end with the fashion and operation side of things.
Can you tell us a bit about Fashion and Founders, how you founded it? It is more than a podcast. As you said, it's a platform, it's a community, it's a business. I'm wondering, at what point do you think of yourself as even a journalist or maybe even a content creator in some ways? Do you consider yourself a founder?
Yeah, I think in terms of wording, the term I'm most aligned with is actually entrepreneur, and it feels very adaptive and solution oriented. And I think that's why this all started. I was facing a problem that I wanted to find a solution to, and that was I was studying actually in London, doing my master's in fashion business, and it was really hard to break into the industry. There were so many questions I had. It felt very gate kept, and I decided I need to figure out these answers. And maybe that's actually just asking people on a podcast and then sharing that with others, maybe in the same position. And it grew from there. And I've tried to adapt it to what my curiosities are, as well as what I'm hearing from the audience, people I'm meeting. And so that's when the Substack happened. And a big piece of that was the job board, because I was finding kind of unique, fun roles, honestly, that were also high paying because a lot of them are in tech or finance. And when I was searching for jobs after my master's, the starting salary was like £25,000, and it just didn't feel livable. And I was really determined to find a way to pursue my passions, but also be able to live off the work that I was doing. And then from there, I started hosting more events because I was meeting some incredible people who I thought, you all have to meet, you have to connect, and really seeing myself as this like intermediary for others. And then recently for an event, for example, was Tech Week in New York, and I hosted an event with an agentic commerce tech company that's pretty focused on fashion brands specifically, and invited past fashion founders who have been on the podcast, people I've connected with, so that they could really actually talk to each other and not leave each other out of these conversations, so that the fashion brands know they can be a part of this AI future and that the tech companies know what they actually need. And so that's how I see it continuing to adapt. I would love to have like an in-house membership club for people in fashion. I'd love to have some sort of accelerator with mentorship. And so really seeing it continue to adapt based on the needs of myself, honestly, and then what people tell me that they want out of it too.
How do you think a creator creates lasting value today in a world where fractured trust is so, detrimental to growth?
It's such an interesting point because It is so easy, and I think that's the best part of it, and honestly, I don't think people are making enough content. I don't think they're actually using this opportunity. It's the first time in history we have a free tool like this, and I would not be sitting here with you if it wasn't for social media, if it wasn't me putting myself out there, and yeah, like, the first things I probably posted were not great value because I had to learn and try and fail and take a video down because it just didn't get enough views so I could try it again. And so I think honestly, the biggest thing I would say is like keep posting and just keep trying. And then where that trust comes in is you genuinely wanting to provide value for that audience. And that can actually take time. You might not hit the nail on the head the first time you post. And I think the people that you're trying to serve will tell you what they want more out of you and why they follow you. And a big piece of that for me, again, was like the podcast clips that I thought provided true advice and value. And then I think the job board piece, it's a hard hiring market right now, and people wanted to feel a sense of possibility of what was actually out there. And I would say now, as content creators, like I definitely see myself in that space. And I think influencer kind of gets like a bad rap as a term, but I think creator actually has an inherent like positive aspect to it that you're creating something that's better than consuming. You're putting something out there new into the world. And we are now in such an entertainment driven society that if you can actually combo that with education, and I've heard it called like edutainment before, where you're actually providing something of real value to people in an entertaining way where they feel really good after watching your video. And I can't say that about the news or some other channels where I feel gross. I want to turn off my phone. If I can go to someone's platform and feel I got a really good piece of value from this, they'll begin to trust you.
I was on your podcast already, and we've talked a little bit about the future of work. So if anyone is listening, I encourage you to listen to that podcast episode as well. But do you see creator-led businesses or the creator economy as a sort of niche still, or do you think that this world represents a sort of broader shift into how young people largely will work in the future?
People with full time jobs, careers, any age, honestly, are starting their own platforms as I think a form of future proofing their career because I actually had, I'll tell a story for this. I was at Copenhagen Fashion Week at a dinner, and I was there for fashion founders. I was there for me. And I was sitting across from someone who worked at Vogue. And she was actually sharing with me that she's scared that if she ever leaves Vogue, if she does her own thing, she won't get invited to events like this anymore because she doesn't have at Vogue.com in her email when she's signing up for stuff. And that people might not know who she was, what her ideas were, what she stood for. And the reason that I think a personal brand is so important, and it doesn't mean selling yourself, it's sharing with people what you value, and then they can connect to that. And so, yeah, I encourage people to share it. You don't have to be a quote unquote influencer, but there's a reason that people who put themselves out there and share content get opportunities. Because I can't invite you to an event if I don't know you exist, if I don't know that you're interested in the same thing as me. But as soon as I see that, you're top of mind and I want to talk to you about what we're both interested in. And so I just can't encourage it enough, and I think it will give people so much internal agency and hopefully create this next generation where everyone has some sort of entrepreneurial side hustle thing going on for them that I think will just make you feel so fulfilled in life as well.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask, so if you were in the room with a 20-year-old right now and they wanted to get into this business, um, there's a lot of programs now, academic programs that teach influencing or teach the creator economy. Um, would you recommend doing that, or is that something that you can't teach? It's authentic and it's inherent. And equally, would you tell them to build their own thing or to go into an institution?
I think two questions there. I think I would say do both. Go work at a company and then maybe do your own thing or start it while you're there. And I say that because I think I've interviewed now over 100 people for the podcast, and the founders who I've seen have like big successful businesses, let's say over $10 million, the number one thing, they had a network behind them. They had people who wanted to help them. You have to make those connections somewhere. And I was actually just writing about this on Substack. I I went to a fashion school. I did my master's in that. It didn't help me get a job, but it gave me an incredible network. And I think that is, I didn't get a job out of it right away, but it helped me actually create true meaningful relationships. And I'm thinking of these past founders, and it helped them find a publicist. It helped them get a free venue for Fashion Week because a friend of a friend of a friend wanted to help them out. It was their first photographer. And you come up with people and you inherently want to help each other out. You've been hearing about their ideas in the back end and you're so excited. I've heard people say that their first investors were their previous colleagues. And so I am obviously such a proponent of doing your own thing. And like, if you want to start and your company's allowing you to do it, like, amazing. But I think the network that you can get will actually just make you go farther and faster with a team behind you and supporting you.
Yeah, and fashion media used to sort of be concentrated, as we talked about, with a handful of magazines, publications, people, maybe gatekeepers. Today, influence is really scattered and fractured across Substack, where you are, TikTok, podcasts, newsletters, niche communities on the internet. Is this making fashion discourse richer or more fragmented? Is there more space for people or less?
I think it's so exciting. I think it's definitely democratizing it. On Substack specifically, you'll see ex Vogue journalists, and they're finally sharing their own thoughts and their own opinions and their own lens. And I think that comes with more representation too, if you actually get to know who this person is. And I hear it a lot in fashion specifically as an industry where someone is saying, "Well, I'm from this city. Like, do I have to move to New York to work in fashion?" And then they're finding someone who's also from Seattle and they're like, "Wow, if they can do it, I can do this too." Or it's, "I studied poli sci. Like, can I actually get into fashion? I studied biology." Like, people think they have these barriers. And then once they see somebody else doing it, it's this form of just possibility and expansion through that. And I think it's so interesting in terms of representation in all other categories as well for people's identities. But just to see my lived experience is different from yours, is different from all these other people. And we're all kind of filtering it through this lens of maybe taste or what we're liking in fashion or pop culture, whatever it is. And I think it just is so expansive. I try to have an abundance mindset when it comes to that. And I think it's almost creating this new cohort of people within the fashion space where now you don't need to go through Vogue or a big publication to actually feel like your voice is heard. And I think there is going to be a dichotomy between this where a creator kind of needs a legacy media to give them a bit of a stamp of approval, but a legacy house publication needs a creator to give them a new lens. And I think we're kind of finally seeing creators and people with like true audiences, true internet intelligence coming to these platforms and finally having those skill sets actually feel well deserved and feel like they're actually being compensated for the work that they have done to prove these audiences and to prove their work. And recently, I've been seeing a lot of independent Substack writers go to, I think it was Mary Claire tapped them to become editors for a couple articles here and there, contributing editors. And I think that's so exciting. And I think it's showing how much these worlds are actually merging. Um, so I think it's just the beginning, and I hope everyone can feel like their voice and their words and everything that they're passionate about has like a potential power behind it to really be seen.
I love internet intelligence. I'm totally going to use that. So thank you. I have internet
You
intelligence.
do.
So that's going in my bio. I want to switch gears slightly. I want to talk about some of the content that you cover on the podcast because I think it's really interesting. So, you basically interview founders for a living, and you've got a background in sustainability as well. So, I think you're uniquely positioned to answer this question that I have, which is, do you think we're headed towards a future where fast fashion is sort of viewed in the same way as fast food?
Yeah, so I used to work at a food waste nonprofit. I studied environmental science in school. I worked on a farm, a permaculture farm in Hawaii. And I was really seeing the just disconnect we have from our clothes and where it comes from. Like, I think people forget that cotton is agriculture, like it affects the land. And so I think the movement that we've seen with fast food and different diet cultures and just the way that people are so, I would say, informed now about what is going into their body. We do not have that with fashion. People have been told, oh, that's sustainable and it isn't, or like, don't buy from this fast fashion company. I think the biggest gap, and we talk about the action gap of consumers say, I would buy sustainable clothing, but like I'm actually not. I think we have an information gap. I think that people don't actually know what's in their clothing. I think we don't know that there are chemicals going into it, that it's really plastic based, and then that's seeping into your skin when you sweat, for example, with activewear. And there's a reason that pregnant women, new moms, babies, children, there's this been a movement specifically, they're wearing, like, only organic cotton, like, they're really looking into what is in it. The rest of us don't really do that, and I think it's not because we don't care, it's we don't most people don't know, and I would want to see almost like a nutrition label for your clothing, and then it's up to the consumer to decide if they wanna do that. Like, I can decide, "Yeah, I'm gonna have ice cream today, and I know it's full of sugar. I know there's dairy in it, and it's gonna hurt my stomach, and I know it's 2,000 calories, but I get to choose to do that." Same with clothing. Like, I should be able to choose what is going onto my body and potentially in it, and we don't have that anymore. We don't have that at all actually right now. And we're starting to see it with the digital passport products, the DPP labels that the EU is passing and enforcing. That's mainly in Europe, though, not America. And I think we'll begin to see more information given there. But I think it's just like an education information gap, and people want to be good. People want to be healthy. And right now, a lot of it was like shameful. You're doing something bad for the planet. But I think if you make it about people's health, and definitely not in, like, a fear-mongering way, like, we don't want people to be scared of their clothing, like, nothing like that, but, like, they should feel empowered with the information to make a choice for themselves.
Yeah, definitely. Do you think that sustainability is about producing better products or producing less products?
I think definitely a mix of both. I think if products were actually made of better quality, we wouldn't feel the need to buy more things, but then obviously some of that shopping comes from marketing and just being told that you need something new. I would love to see in the future fashion meeting function better. And I think if we felt that our clothes really served a new function, but they were still designed aesthetically, we would be buying less things because I'm thinking, for example, Copenhagen really has this. And I've been 3 years in a row now for different conferences, summits, fashion week. And I felt like they did this really well. And they're such a design culture. And for example, I think it was called Rain Sisters. They made these beautiful raincoats that almost looked like a dress. And it had like this twirl function at the bottom. And it felt like something you'd want to keep on instead of, oh my gosh, it's raining and I'm running to dinner and I have to grab like my ugly raincoat I've had for 4 years in the back of my closet. I'm going to take it off as soon as I get there. Like, no one's going to see me in this. If it was actually something pretty that you wanted, that you felt proud to wear, and I think that's where the biggest gap is and the biggest opportunity is create functional clothing, specifically with new environmental, like heat waves, really cold climates, like these extreme weather events in mind, you're gonna win.
When you talk to some of your founders, you've had some big founders on too. You've had, the head of Love Shack Fancy, I believe. You've
Mhm.
had Rebecca Minkoff, some massive design houses. Um, how do they sort of navigate that world, right? Because for brands, many brands are listening. Social media is a sales channel for them, right? They have to use it as a tool to reach the masses. How do they balance, you know, using it as a sales channel, but also as a storytelling channel and creating more meaningful content that's not just pushing product and encouraging consumption, even though that is their core, goal at the
Yeah.
end of the day is to convert those audiences eyeballs into
So I think for a brand, like, it's different. I think most creators, if they feel like they need to get started, you're like, "Oh my gosh, okay, so I have to talk about a product." But I think if you have a brand page, people know okay, like the end goal here is for me to buy something, but how they get there, I think 100% storytelling. And I think Love Shack Fancy actually does that so well. Like she has built a world. It is her home. It is everything she touches. And that we talked about earlier. How do you build trust? I trust that she loves everything she is putting out because she is the embodiment of her brand. And you immediately know that. And so I think if your content, if what you're putting out there feels like, I think it just has to feel additive at the end of the day. And if I'm just posting, you should buy this, skip. Like I'm not interested. But if it's why, if it's how you built it, I think Grace Beverly, who's really big in the UK, she talks about why she built something, and that brings me back to entrepreneurship of they're creating a solution for a problem, and she's specifically saying, "I hated the way all of my leggings felt on me, and so I actually designed this, and I did it this way." And that makes me wanna buy. So I'm like, "You put so much time and energy into this. You're telling me the entire process. I now can understand." I feel like I can ask you questions. I feel like if I said, "Can you actually do this instead of that?" You might actually listen to what I have to say, and I think it's bringing people in, and we've seen a lot of founders do that of they share collections during the process. They're like, "Do you guys like this shade of yellow or this one?" And people feel involved and not like you're selling to them, but that you're co-creating with them, and I think that's the biggest difference.
I always ask all of my guests at the end, who is somebody that they think is creating a new or inspiring version of tomorrow that they find inspiring and, moving. It could be a person, someone famous, or maybe somebody in your own life. It could be a brand. It could be one of your own guests on your own podcast. So I just want to know, who is your pick?
Yeah, so many, but I'm gonna have to say Naomi Osaka. She is a tennis player and recently has been having the most incredible on-court fashion moments. And I think that is just so exciting in the way that she is merging emerging designers with her Nike partnership, coming onto the court with a beautiful couture gown. The same designer did her Australian Open look that designed her Met Gala look. And I think tennis obviously is a sport that fits so well into like luxury fashion. It's very like elegant. It's a safe sport for these brands to tap into. But she's treating the court like her runway, and it's so fun and so inspiring, and I think it's so cool to see athletes get that recognition too, and they get to wear a beautifully, intricately designed piece of clothing, and the way she's doing it is so intentional. There's a fun story behind it. Like, her Australian Open look was inspired by her daughter's love of jellyfish, and so it feels playful, and obviously her talent speaks for itself, but it's something beautiful enough where she can walk onto that court and her skills and her taste in the design just speak for themselves without her having to say a word. So I think we're going to be seeing more of that, but the way she's doing it is just so beautiful.
Thank you to my guest, Victoria Smith, host of the Fashion and Founders podcast. If you are a WGSN subscriber, look out for more trends at WGSN.com. If you're not a subscriber, please come and discover our services. We'll be back with our next episode soon. In the meantime, you can catch the CEO of WGSN, Carla Buzasci, next week on our other podcast, Lives of Tomorrow. I'm your host, Cassandra Napoli. Be sure to follow and subscribe to this podcast, and see you next time.